Call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee for September 27th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for attending here tonight. I'd like to thank everyone at home watching. This meeting is being broadcast by SMAC and recorded for future internet access. And at this point, you might want to silence your phones. I took this out as an example. And I'm just going to mention this at the beginning here. We have a lot of information to go over, a lot of articles. This is an important time of year, special town meeting preparation. So we're going to kind of tighten it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier for Dolores, who's taking minutes. So we're going to try to cut down on the crosstalk, wait to be recognized to speak. Okay. That being said, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we, let me put my mic on. I move we open the public hearing.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Public hearing is open. Who was the second on that? Elliot? Were you the second on that? Yeah. Elliot, thank you. We're going to start with Article 1, collective bargaining for the dispatchers union. Mr. Coulter, would you like to present this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The panel will be presenting the financials and answer any questions you have. I just want to say that I'm pleased to announce that all 8 of the town labor unions have reached agreement with us. So with the town meeting passage of the 5 articles we're presenting to you this evening, we will not only be under agreement, but we've achieved something that very few towns have achieved, and that's labor harmony with each of the unions. So with that, you've all met Attorney Kate Federoff. She's been involved in every one of our negotiations, and you all know Deanna, who's also been a key player in this negotiating team. So we're prepared to answer any questions you have on any of these 5 articles.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have any questions or comments on Article 1, collective bargaining for the dispatchers union? Joel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask 2 questions, and if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask the same 2 questions for all 5 articles, so I thought I'd ask them all now so we won't have to do it over and over again. Okay, so the first question is the new labor rates and cost, are those included in the fiscal 24 budget?
Yes, there's no additional funding required from this town meeting.
On all 5?
On all 5.
Okay, and the second question is, if for some reason the Finance Committee or town meeting decides not to approve any of these, what would be the impact?
If town meeting fails to fund, because obviously the FinCom is an advisory board, but if town meeting fails to fund, what is required is that we have to go back to the unions and bargain new deals and come back to town meeting with, it could be the same, different, more, less. So that's the option. But you have to, again, sit down with all of the unions and bargain in good faith until we get an agreement that's passed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Anzavino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we're on the dispatch, I noticed the new contract said it was effective July 1st of 22, which would tell me that there's retro coming for that?
That's correct.
And that was already included in the budget?
It was budgeted, yes.
In 23?
That's correct. I believe it was encumbered then, am I right? I believe it was encumbered prior to the close of the fiscal year, so that retro will be covered from that operating budget, essentially, because of that encumbrance.
All right. And the question I have for, obviously, 23, it's already built in. and we know that budget was a little high anyway. And I know, according to the spreadsheet we got, as far as for all of them, the only change on dispatch for 23 and 24 are salaries, period. $400,000 and 404. But for 24, we're expecting less people, correct? So can you explain why we're pretty much the same if we're losing the people?
Oh, why it's fully funded for FY '24? So the transfer of 911 is expected to incur in part in October, but not all of 911 will transfer at that point. So I believe it's fire, and so that's your EMD calls where you have medical support. And what else is, and then police is converting in January. That's right. So any other calls for service from the police department that are non-medical would transfer in January.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on Article 1, collective bargaining for the dispatchers union? Diane?
How much is this collective bargaining, to you, Mr. Chairman? I'm not exactly thrilled about the way the article is written, and it says estimated cost 0. It's really not true. We can put the amount there and then in parentheses, funded through the '24 operating budget. But I think the town deserves to know exactly how much this budget is going to be.
We can make that change.
We
Okay. Do
we
you know
can't
that-
change,
do-
But
we cannot
can't
change the
this now.
warrant.
I mean, in the future, we
Yeah.
can make that change for you.
The warrant can't change from what was voted by the selectmen. And there was no money, I think in the majority of them, had no money at that time. So you're kind of stuck with the estimated cost, and you just end up with whatever the motion is for the,
That's correct.
that's all.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 1, collective bargaining dispatchers union. Adam?
Yeah, just one quick one. On this article and a couple of the other ones, the timeframes don't line up completely. So in Article 1, it says we'll vote to approve a 3-year collective bargaining agreement, but the actual contract is only 2 years. I think that happens a couple other times in the warrant. Do we ignore that? Do we change it? What do we do with that?
I'm just going to take a look at the warrant. Hold on. Yeah, that's just a typographical error, so we'll make sure when the motion is the critical thing for town meeting. So this puts the town meeting on notice, and then it can be refined in the motion. So we'll make sure that where it's a 1-year versus a 2-year versus a 3-year deal, to accurately present that to town meeting.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Article 1. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 1, collective bargaining for the dispatchers union? Hearing none.
The MOA does not, the MOA has July 1st, 22 and July 1st of 23. The warrant was written that said FY '23 through FY '25, but you can't commit the funds. You can't commit the funds for all 3 years. You can only vote to approve the funding for 20.
So the way collective bargaining works is that once town meeting funds the first year, the town is bound
Yes, they're bound
to accept those next year increases. Naturally, if there aren't sufficient funds, either you have two choices: you lay off, or you renegotiate with the union some sort of reduction if, for example, there's some sort of catastrophe. But once you've locked in that first year funding of the contract, you're bound for the next years.
I understand. But if we
Oh,
need,
sorry.
if we need to change the motions, please keep me informed, because I'm going to be doing the book, and I don't want to be getting things, the day before we're supposed to submit again. So,
Sure, I'm confident
but
the town
the
manager's
point
office will
The
take
point
care of
I'm
that.
making now is the MOA says effective July 1st, 22, and effective July 1st, 23. Doesn't carry anything further than that for the, That's the MOA we have for the dispatch.
The MOA expired on the end of fiscal '22, and so it's for fiscal '23 and '24. It extends through June 30th, '24. I guess I'm struggling to see where you're pointing.
I think Mr.
Looking at
Anzavino's
the motion
pointing.
saying
Oh, are
it's
you
going
looking at
through
the warrant?
FY25.
Are you looking at the warrant or the
I'm
MOA?
looking at both. I'm looking at the warrant, which says FY23 through FY25, and I'm looking at the MOA we got, which calls for wages effective July 1st, '22 and July 1st, '23. Nothing for July 1st, '24, which would go through.
So I can tell you that the MOA is for FY '23 and FY '24, and there's an error in the warrant.
Okay.
Referencing the wrong year, and that will be corrected by motion.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from,
23 and 20, all 24.
any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 1. Questions or comments from the public on Article 1, Collective Bargaining Dispatchers Union? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 2, Collective Bargaining Police Patrol Union.
Mr. Chairman, Cynthia did raise her hand.
Yes. Please identify yourself for the record.
I got it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but would you please ask your members to make sure they use a mic? Otherwise, I can't hear you.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Everyone hear that? Make sure you use the mic when you talk. Make sure the mic's on. There's a little green light. You'll figure it out. And try to speak up, too. Okay, Article 2, Collective Bargaining Police Patrol Union. Mr. Coulter, would you like to present this?
I think, Mr. Chairman, it's self-explanatory. We'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 2, Collective Bargaining Police Patrol Union? Adam?
Just a question on why we go through the negotiations for a one-year contract versus some of the other ones are up to 3 years or so. Is there
Yeah,
logic behind that?
That's a great question. What we didn't want to do, well, let me start by saying, we knew we had a couple of big, heavy items to negotiate with the police department, and it would take some time. So what we didn't want to be faced with was, like has occurred in years past, that you're out of contract for a significant period of time. So we thought we could just do what I would call a Band-Aid agreement to get us through this fiscal year that we're in currently, so that we have it's difficult for the accounting department to do all the retro payments because you have to deal with overtime and all of those other issues. So we were just trying to be wise with our resources internally, and we knew that this would just tide them over so that we could deal with some heavy language items that we knew would take some time to really develop with them.
So in the future, they would be longer term? They're
Yeah,
not
so-
always going to be 1 year at a time?
No, in the future, so I am quite confident that you'll see at the May town meeting a 3-year deal.
Which incidentally, we promised the FinCom you'll have to your desk by December 31st.
Oh, in the microphone, Tom, for...
Which, as we promised in the past, would have those annual town meeting contracts to you by December 31st.
Thank you. Mr. Anzavino, you have a question?
Well, just a point. It's also wise not to have all 8 running out at the same time. It is good to have them staggered, and hopefully you end up that way so you don't have the burden of doing all 8 at once.
Right.
Not an easy task.
Right, I love coming to Stoughton, but not that much.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 2, Collective Bargaining for the Police Patrol. Diane, you have a question?
So this is a one-year agreement, yet Article 2 says from FY '23 through '25. So is that not correct?
I can tell you that the MOA for police is a 1-year agreement, and there must be a mistake in the warrant.
Okay. So this is technically... for
And
the-
we're looking at Article 2, I think.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. So this is technically just for FY '24, right?
That's
Yeah, and my copy of that warrant does say 1 year FY '24.
That's all I have.
Yeah, that's all I have also, Diane.
I have an FY24,
Through you,
that's it.
Vaughn.
I
Yeah,
just printed this out today.
yeah, the red line version?
If you got the red line, maybe there was something in there, but it only says through 24 on mine. And this is actually the updated,
All right, thank you.
not red line. So
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 2, collective bargaining, police patrol union.
just one, same thing. This is strictly money, all salary, nothing else.
That's correct.
And they still running short, by the way, Tom?
Currently, Mr. Vice Chairman, they're down 12.
12.
But they've had some success recently. They're interviewing and are ready to make offers or have made offers to 4 additional patrolmen.
Good, because last time they were down 10.
sorry?
Now they're down.
Deanna has just increased that to 7. So we hope to be fully staffed by the end of the fiscal year.
Great.
Pardon my voice, I've got a bronchial infection.
Great news, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the committee on this, Article 2? Any questions or comments from the public? Article 2, collective bargaining, police patrol union. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 3, collective bargaining, SPEA.
Mr. Chairman, would be happy to take questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Article 3, collective bargaining, SPEA. Okay, any questions or comments from the public on Article 3, collective bargaining, SPEA? All right, hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 4, collective bargaining, police superior officers. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 4, collective bargaining, police superior officers? Adam?
I was just wondering if you could just define what the $200 stipend is? There really wasn't a lot of detail in there.
Give me just 1 second. So in prior negotiations, there was a supervisory stipend that was negotiated for the superior officers, and now that's just being made part of their base wage salaries because they're supervisors, so their salaries should just simply reflect their duties.
There's nothing special that they're doing for that, that's just part of their base pay?
Now, yes, now it's part of their base pay, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Anzavino, did you have something on
I'm
this?
just going to make a general comment on all these contracts. You need to go back through the MOAs, and we got a cost estimate on SPEA for 3 years. And we have a motion for 1 year. So we really need to clean these up and make sure we have all these motions correct. Because the MOAs are going to go out as well as the backup material. I mean, we got to have these things together.
Yeah, so I can tell you with confidence that the MOA is absolutely correct, and that's what you should rely on for tonight. And we will ensure that the articles, or rather the motions, properly reflect what the MOAs say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 4, collective bargaining, police superior officers? Any questions or comments from the public? Article 4, collective bargaining, police superior officers. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 5, collective bargaining, library.
Yeah.
Would you like to present? Do you want me to just?
If you just take questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I kind of jumped the gun a little bit earlier. I'm sorry about that. And if you wanted to present.
Quite all right.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Article 5, collective bargaining, library. I have a quick question. On this here, the money's already all in the budget, right? It's already budgeted, everything's budgeted.
That's correct.
I just want to double check. All right. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Article 5, collective bargaining, library. Questions or comments from the public on Article 5, collective bargaining, library? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we have Article 20, Clean Streets bylaw.
Mr. Chairman, this article is to put in place the guidelines, terms, and conditions through a bylaw under which we can enforce the town beautification program, i.e. the solid waste program. As you know, Mr. Chairman, many people have come out in support of beautifying the town of Stoughton. What council has drafted is a bylaw that allows us to enforce the things that are happening, like illegal dumping or putting trash out in the street 5 days too early. It allows us to enforce the regulations that the town has passed. So this Article 20, Clean Streets bylaw, does just that. It gives the inspector and the program manager the authority to remove trash and to charge people for the removal of that trash if they refuse to do so themselves. Be happy to answer any questions about the bylaw itself, which was drafted by Attorney Winter.
All right, questions or Mark, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, through you. With this bylaw, it doesn't seem to address, which I believe it's already a bylaw, what happens if we're now big stuff and all that's not being picked up and they put it at my place, at my residence? Is there a, because you're going after like actual residents on this bylaw, but you're not going at somebody that's just placing it at my residence, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, Mark, and I understand what you're saying, and Stoughton residents have been victimized by people from out of town dropping items off on their properties. What we would ask, and we have asked at these 6 public hearings now, is that citizens be very diligent, see something, say something. We've now got an infrastructure in place, along with the support of our Stoughton Police Department, to track those people down. And that's illegal dumping. That's a felony.
All right. And
That's a crime.
Now, does that carry a $500 or no?
That's a state law, and it's a felony that is actionable. I don't know the exact fine, but we will catch them. We will prosecute them. We just need the help of the citizens. It's tough changing practices. We know. We know firsthand. We've probably got a dozen examples of out-of-town people, and they're not all strangers. They could be friends and relatives of residents that say, "Hey, come on down. They don't charge us any extra. Bring us your bureau. Bring us your couch. Bring us your mattress." That's all changed under this beautification program, and we have the infrastructure in place, but we do need the help of citizens to catch up with those people.
Okay.
You are so right that if you're victimized and somebody drops it off at your house unknowing to you, just talk to us. We're not going to penalize citizens that are victimized.
Right, because that's the thing, is like, if I'm looking at this and then, I'm getting charged with this and it's like, it isn't mine.
Sure.
What's the remedy on that?
We have a program manager in place who was a regional 911 dispatcher. She's used to handling crisis situations. You explain that to her, and we'll always do the right thing for our citizens. We're not going to victimize you twice.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for asking.
Any other questions? Dave, you have a question?
Thank you, Vaughn. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the town manager. I want to basically commend you for actually coming in with an idea to solve a problem. You went to the open public forums to actually get feedback, and it was interesting to see that everybody in the town wanted to solve the same problem, and it was just a matter of how. And you were flexible enough to listen that with passion, people wanted a tax increase. They couldn't wait. Please, we want our trash picked up the way we want it picked up, even if it means paying more. So when I saw the program get rolled out, I noticed that there was an increase in the fee, the rates that everybody would pay based on single, double family, whatever, all that. And that seemed to be enough money to fix the gap, the deficit that you had. But then we ended up seeing also a rate schedule on bulky items. So what I wanted to know is, if you solve the problem with just the rate increase, can we look for a reduction in cost on the bulky or other sources of reduction when you realize, hey, now we're all of a sudden we're making a profit on trash, and now we need to give that back to the town somehow?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question, David. As you recall from the last public hearing, there were a number of recommendations that the town has asked us to explore. And those recommendations could be, again, to re-explore bags, drums or barrels, even private pay, which I don't think many people support. But we were instructed to investigate them and to determine and to report back to the town on November of next year. At that same time, we'll report back on how the rate adjustments have turned out in terms of getting the account to break even. We didn't budget it to be profitable. We budgeted just to be break even. But there's a lot of unknowns that we had to make assumptions. For instance, although there'll be a reduction in volume because we're taking the bulky solid waste out of the trucks, there'll be an increase in cost for disposing of those bulky items. So we made a lot of assumptions. We know we're going to wipe out that massive subsidy and that massive structural deficit. We don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. But part of the vote of the Board of Selectmen is that November 1st of 2024, we have to report back on how it has shaken out and what other options we're considering to present to the public.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so that answers the question. You will look back at the numbers
Absolutely.
and give back.
Thank you, David.
Any other question? Elliot, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be not the persons to ask this question about, but I see a senior discount of 50% off the quarterly fee. Right now, I don't get a discount even though I'm definitely elderly. I'm officially an old geezer as of a month ago. Yes. And I'm a young coot. Before I couldn't get a 50%, any kind of a discount as a senior because I didn't own the house, even though I'm the only occupant. Right now, is that 50% discount
Unfortunately,
not for me, or is it for me?
Unfortunately, it's not in the article, though. The discount, the rates are not in the article. That's the only problem here.
Through
You can answer,
through you,
Mr.
Mr.
Cole.
Chair, if you don't mind me, it's a simple question. You are eligible. All one has to do, it's not part of this town meeting warrant, but it is part of the program that was passed by the Board of Selectmen 3 months ago and effective October 1st. All anyone of age has to do is go into either the collector's office or DPW, show your driver's license, the account is adjusted right there.
Okay, thank you.
How's that?
Good enough.
Don't bring the fake ID you have, though.
You better go tomorrow, because I printed on both sides. Effective the next billing.
Joel, do you have a question?
Could I ask who's going to do the enforcement of this?
Yes, Joel, good question. We baked into the rates the structure that we needed to enforce it. We hired a zoning enforcement officer who's been on the streets now for 3 months, educating everybody on the changing policy. He has spoken at our sessions. We also have one of our staff people in the office. It's on. Oh, thank you. One of our staff people in the office who's charged with just this solid waste program. So I know it's not part of the agenda, Vaughn, so indulge me just for a second, because any opportunity we have to talk about the program, the better. Anybody sees anything or has a question, they call DPW, they'll be directed directly to the program manager who can answer any questions. If they're calling in to report something, see something, say something, that person will immediately dispatch that zoning enforcement officer to knock on that door and deal with the issue. So there is a staff in place. We are so equipped to handle what happens October 1st. We've got a lot of feedback from citizens because we've got sites cleaned up already that we strongly encourage everybody to call into DPW. You'll be routed right to that program manager.
So the zone enforcement officer will be the primary enforcement person?
For the first 3 months, the answer is yes. So here's how it works. You would call in, let's say there's a violation. You'd call in, you'd get the program manager, her name is April. She would call the resident, first step, and tell the resident, you must take that stuff off your curb on Monday because it's not being picked up till Friday. If they do that, problem solved. If they don't do that, the zoning enforcement officer is dispatched the exact same day to go out and knock on the door and please, remove it. It's the town beautification program. You have to put that out on Friday. If they still don't do that, all still within the same day, the police will be notified, and that the bylaw allows for that, and ask them to kindly remove the rubbish from your driveway or from your curb. It's not supposed to go out until Friday. Or the solid waste. People will clean out their home, particularly apartments, on a weekend. They may not be picked up till Friday. Under this bylaw, they can't do that. And all we ask is for neighbors to call us, and we'll kindly and respectfully remind them, you cannot put that out till Friday. And if they say, well, we're leaving it there, then we'll come get it. And then we will charge them for it, and it'll be on their tax bill.
All right, you just said something interesting. You said the first 3 months?
The program begins October 1st. We've been out there working with citizens since we passed this in September.
Yeah.
But for the first 3 months, the inspector is going to be out on the pickup trail every day. There are other things we have to
All right, so
enforce.
after the 3-month period,
He'll be called when needed.
It's a call-in when needed?
When needed.
Okay, all right,
Follow
fine.
the trucks for the first few weeks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Diane, you have a question on this?
I actually have two. The first one being there was discussion about the town purchasing barrels or purchasing barrels that the residents could go and purchase from the town. I know it said in all of literature that we got in the shopper's guide, is that what it's called?
Yes, but this is also not in the article.
Okay, all right. Well, my second question might be, if people already have a senior discount, do they have to go and reassign themselves for this 50%? I'm not sure if that was clear or not.
You know what? That's a great question. I would like to assume that if you're already getting the senior discount, it'll be adjusted to 50%. But Diane, let me follow up on that.
It's been
I think, Ms.
clarified
Has it?
online, so forth, it's out there that if you're already on the program, you will continue on the program.
Vice Chairman is 100% correct.
I got that right from Mr. Jaffoon.
That's because of your age.
That's how I know.
You looked into that.
Well, yeah, I got it this year because I turned 70. Now you're taking it to 65. Is there retro on that, Paul?
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Anzavino?
Is Diane all set?
I'm all set, I don't know. Mr. Cafoon, do you have something?
He was just answering your question.
Okay, because he was back and waiting. Okay, I'm all set. Thanks.
Just saying hello.
Is
Yes. What they're going to ask about it. It's next.
Is this a brand-new bylaw, or is this an addition to an existing one? Because I see it starts at 162.19, which leads me to believe there's already a 162.
This is a new bylaw drafted by Brian Winter.
It's brand new.
Yes, sir.
All right, because normally you would see, starting off with -1 for section 1, not be, and I bring it up because the next one is going to be a similar thing where they're referencing 162 again and 125. That's why I was wondering if they were additions or. Well, the next one, it refers to 125 and 162. So, anyway, if it's brand new, that's fine. I just don't know why they didn't start at 1, that's all.
I'll pursue that with Brian, John. I'll get an answer for you.
I mean, that's the engineer in me. When I
I
see
know.
number 19, I expect to see 1 through 18 before them.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 20? I have a comment on this. Section 162-22 says, in addition to the requirement of 162-5, which is nowhere to be found in here, no person shall place or leave any rubbish, solid waste, and/or other materials of similar like in kind on any public street, right-of-way, and/or sidewalk for collection in violation of the time periods established by the Select Board, and in any event, no earlier than 7 p.m. prior to the day of collection and no longer than 7 p.m. the day of collection. So the way I'm reading that is that essentially most of my neighbors are already in violation because they're putting this out before 7 p.m. Now, in the middle of December, the sun sets at a little bit after 4 o'clock. So you're making people not able to put the trash out before 7. You have elderly people who are now going to have to drag the barrels down in the dark in the winter, where there could be snow, ice, whatever. And that's one of my issues with this, is that there's at 7 p.m. you can't put it out. Now, to bring the barrels in by 7 p.m. is not really an issue, but even something like town meeting starts at 7 o'clock. So people who have trash collection on, say, Tuesdays or Thursdays could not put their barrels out before going to town meeting, or they'd be in violation. That means they'd have to come home from town meeting, and we know sometimes that runs late. And have to drag their barrels down at 11 o'clock at night. So that was my issue with, this bylaw, is that time frame.
Mr. Chairman, you're 100% right, and it's been raised by other citizens, and I can say very publicly right now, this is the intent. It will not, that provision, it's very difficult to draft something that gives all the flexibility in the world. One senior called me last week and told me that her driveway is 300 feet long, and if in the wintertime she's bringing her barrels down in the winter, she's bringing it down in the dark. And I told her, and I'll say to the public right now, we are not going to enforce that part of the provision, particularly in the wintertime when it's dark out. That would create a safety concern. We've thought about ways of drafting that to make it clearer, and what we decided to do is to keep the intent of it in place, but to have tremendous flexibility in terms of that. We're not looking to have anybody put themselves in danger by being out there in the dark at night.
But if it's in writing, then that's the bylaw.
Well,
So we can't pass a bylaw with the intent of not
could
enforcing
amend
it.
that on the floor, Mr. Chairman. We just have to find the language that maintains the intent, so it's not out at 6 o'clock in the morning for the next day, that maintains or protects the intent of it, but still gives people common sense flexibility. And that, what you're describing is common sense flexibility.
All right, thank you for that.
One point.
Yes, Mr. Enzavino.
He just raised the exact question that I was asking. Where's the rest of 162? Because you referenced 162.5, it's not here.
Mr. Winter's not here right now, but I can follow that up, John, and get you the answer.
Okay? And, because I know 2 and 3 are in the next article. So, like I said, it just, And by the way, keep in mind, one of the outs, be like they do for the plowing. You can't park in the street between certain dates. Maybe those are the dates you use to say
That could be.
you could go early.
Sure.
Just a suggestion.
That could be a remedy.
Just a suggestion. That was the first thing that came to my mind.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 20, Clean Streets Bylaw. Questions or comments from the public? Article 20, Clean Streets Bylaw. Please identify yourself for the record. Cynthia Walsh.
1096 Park Street. I haven't done the research, but it seems to me the Board of Health, a long time ago, said that the rule was no earlier than 24 hours before your pickup, which would cover some of the folks we were talking about. And then there's seniors like me who literally can't bring her trash to the curb anymore. I've tried throwing it, but I'm no pitcher. So the person who manages my farm works from 3 to midnight. So he puts my trash out at like 2 p.m. It's out now. It was out before I came to this meeting. I think someone should do a little research, and maybe it's 162-5, I don't know. But it used to be 24 hours. So it would be 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. the next day. Maybe noon, say not before noon on the day before your trash is collected. So that takes into consideration early sundowns, which will be like 4 o'clock next month sometime. And also those of us who have people who drop by and are kind enough to put our trash out for us once a week. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Please identify yourself for the record, Peter. Peter?
Thank you. It's on. Peter Banis, Precinct 2, 41 Walnut Court. I saw the town crier. I'm not on Facebook, but I am on email, and I saw the town crier, and it mentioned about the 50% discount for seniors. And I came down to the town hall today. I showed my license, and I guess I'm going to get the 50% discount. And I appreciate Mr. Calter explained to me the reason that happened was Mr. Cohn had one of the questions in one of the public hearings to question people that had their homes that they worked their whole life for in a trust. And that part of the discount for the trash pickup for all the many past years, you couldn't get it. So I just want to compliment Mr. Cohn, first of all, and thank him. I was hoping he would be here. And Mr. Calter told me today, just go show him your license. And, you know, to save $45, thanks a million. It gives me extra lottery numbers. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, brief comment,
Sure.
if I may. I want to be clear, this policy is in support of the beautification mission of the town, which has got an extraordinary amount of support. People want Stoughton to look better. If the will of town meeting is to make that 24 hours, certainly as the authors of the program, Paul and I would have no objection if that's what the folks at town meeting want. We just get tremendous feedback all the time from people, especially Mr. Cohn, who said that he never knew that Stoughton was being dumped on until the beautification program started, and now he sees it every day. That's his quote. But if the members, town meeting members, want to change that period, we're not going to enforce that within a 4-hour span, 5-hour span. But if they wanted to make it 24 hours and that's the will of the people, that we certainly would have no objection.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from the public? Article 20, Clean Streets Bylaw. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 11.
Mr. Chairman, that will be withdrawn. That was
All right.
a duplicative effort of the previous article.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments?
It's being withdrawn?
Yep. Questions or comments from the committee? Article 11, Solid Waste Bylaw. Questions or comments from the public? Article 11, Solid Waste Bylaw. All right, next item on the agenda, Article 20. Yes, Mr. Anzavino.
Just to be clear, you said that they felt that was a duplication of the previous article. We just,
Two of us were drafting it at the same time.
Okay.
Mr. Winters won.
okay,
So we're withdrawing 21.
thank you.
Excuse me, Article 11.
Yeah, so Article 11 will be withdrawn. Questions or comments from the committee, Article 11? Solid Waste Bylaw? No. Questions or comments from the public? Article 11, Solid Waste Bylaw? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 21, Municipal Charges Lien.
Attorney Fedorov will handle that.
I can present that. So to be clear, my intention in coming here tonight was to be labor counsel, but this guy over here has roped me into being town counsel, so I'm going to try to pinch hit for Brian as best as possible.
It was a lump sum, so we thought it was the most out of her.
That's right. That's right. So essentially, this article, so let me take a step back. There are certain liens that by operation of law or by operation of other bylaws can be attached to your tax bill. And one of the reasons for that is to effectively and in a cheaper, more expeditious way, ensure that the bill is paid. If you don't have that capacity, what happens, and in this case, this is applying to the trash fees, the trash charges. If you don't have that, what your only option is to issue a green ticket. The police officers would issue a green ticket, and then you take the person to small claims court to try to enforce it, right? So this is a mechanism to say, no, if you don't pay this bill, it becomes a lien on your property, gets attached to your tax bill, and then at a certain point, if all of these other bills warrant tax title taking, it would be repaid following the taking, just like your taxes would or your water sewer bill would.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Anzavino, you have a question?
I'm going to ask, as I did on the previous one, is 125 a new bylaw? Or a new, I assume that's what's going here, right? It says to adopt the bylaw. Because the second question becomes, why are a couple of items here 162-2 and 3 under 125? I know I can be slow, but it confuses me.
And I can take a hazard to guess on this because I do this for other towns. So what we do when we're drafting a bylaw is we try to see where we can nestle it in naturally within your existing bylaws. So I'm going to guess that you have some component of this bylaw elsewhere, and we're just adding to it in certain sections. So for example, you have 125 as the authority. I'm guessing that has to do with leaning properties for fees. And then I'm guessing 162 has to do with other liens, but that's just a guess.
We were told
And
earlier
we can
162 is a new bylaw.
But this language is all completely new. So the language itself is new, the paragraphs are new, but it's following along with another bylaw, I think, because it probably makes sense sticking it there. Because otherwise you have all these bylaws running around in your code that are,
I understand
No
the
one can
premise.
find.
I understand the
Yeah.
premise. It just,
John, if the attorney who drafted it were here, you'd get a very crisp answer. Instead, what we will do is get a written response to you on this tomorrow
if you
morning.
would, I'd
Certainly.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I can't be the only one that's confused by this.
Any other questions? Dave, you have a question?
I do, through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure who's going to be best to answer this, because this topic comes up, and it's been coming up for a lot of years, where at one point, we actually had a presentation by a lien service that did collections for us, or could have been doing it, where they just take over the liability and execute whatever it takes to get people to pay their taxes. And we have it's easy on our end, tougher for the service provider who's doing it. Are we using a service provider to collect past due? How's that working? Are we, are we chipping away? Have we gotten any home runs or?
Yes and yes. Mr. Chairman, our treasurer is here, but I can answer that question. We are interviewing a lien consultant in the next several weeks to consider that option. There are pros and cons of using a service like that, but it is our top priority to collect back taxes this year, as we promised the FinCom we would. Whether that is the best way to go about it or not, we're just exploring that option now, but it's on the top of our agenda. I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be interviewing a consultant to consider retaining them to do those lien collections. They would not only do the collections, they would own the lien.
Yeah, that's how I understood it would
And there's some
work.
challenges associated with doing
Yeah,
that.
so through you, so we haven't been over the past few years actually using that kind of service. It's been on hold until this year when it'll start to be used. I thought they might have been using them, but maybe I was mistaken.
Thank you, and that's a very good question. So if you are asking about real estate taxes, which I think you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so real estate taxes, if they are not paid, they go to a tax taking. And once it's in a tax taking, 6 months later, the treasurer collector can send that to land court and/or to land of low value through DLS, which we do right now.
We're doing, so there's, okay, through you, Vaughn, there's a distinction between what this bylaw changes versus what we're already doing on the real estate side. This has to do with different.
That is correct. This is just so that we can put a lien. We can use the municipal charges lien for the collection of trash. Right now, we do not have that.
Okay, so it's non-real estate type things. Thank you.
Correct.
That helps.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 21, Municipal Charges Lien? Okay, questions or comments from the public, Article 21, Municipal Charges Lien? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 14.
thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for attending.
Have a good night. I'm leaving.
Leaving?
Have a good night, thank you. Article 14, Truck Public Works.
What if we want to go back?
14, the
14, yep.
truck for Public Works.
Good evening. Paul Jaffoon, Public Works. Article 14 is to purchase a new rack truck. The two rack trucks we have now, we're going to be utilizing them both for the bulk pickup, as Mr. Coulter and others have described previously with the new beautification program, new trash policy, etc. One of those trucks that we will continue to use until hopefully we do purchase and get this new truck is a 1997 rack truck that's in very tough shape. So this truck would be to replace that one and to support the new program.
Which will be 40 to 5 days a week.
Okay, Mark, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Why is this being brought up at special town meeting and not at regular town meeting?
Mark, I think that was on the lips of almost everybody here. If we weren't doing this beautification program, the solid waste program, we would be waiting till the annual town meeting. Right now, that 23-year-old truck is going out maybe 1 day a week to pick up solids and solid whites, bulky solids like furniture and bulky whites. Under this new program, we expect it to go out 4 to 5 days a week and be loaded every single day to the brim. We're going to schedule on GPS or GIS, so it will be a full truck every single day. A 24-year-old truck, we couldn't wait till the spring. We will miss scheduled days. It's down quite often. We wouldn't be ordering this now if we weren't kicking off this program October 1st.
Yeah, but this program's been in the works since the Springtown meeting. I've heard about this program.
No, it's been since August. But even still, we couldn't order a truck based upon a possible program that the Board of Selectmen may pass.
Yeah, but if it's a bad and broken truck, we should be ordering it.
We were going out
anyways.
once a week. Now we're going out 4 to 5 days a week. We couldn't order the truck on a program that didn't exist. That's what I'm trying to say to you. Now we can't operate with a truck that doesn't run consistently every day if we're going to fulfill the schedule of the citizens calling in for routine pickups of material they used to throw in the back of the rubbish truck. That's why we couldn't order it. I appreciate the question, though.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Joel, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell me, or the town accountant tell me, what the source of funding for this will be?
Yeah, we have no free cash, so it would have to be borrowing.
I'm sorry, what? I didn't hear you.
We have no free cash certified at this time. It would have to be borrowing.
Really?
I don't know of another source.
Don't we have a stabilization fund, or?
Would you like to help out with that stabilization fund? That would be a finance committee decision.
Thank you. I think.
Welcome. Any other questions? Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have two, if that's all right, through you, Vaughn. One of them is, I think one of the things that I think the town labors over a lot of times when we come up with purchases, especially on the DPW side, because we get all these like shiny objects that we keep having to acquire, all these, all this heavy equipment, and we seem to get a lot of it. Is there a review being done to take a look at all the equipment we have as to whether or not it's being, used properly, and whether or not some of that could be used to kind of trade out for something like this?
So, David, I'm so glad you asked that question. We're doing an auction first week, I believe, in November for 27 pieces of equipment that have been sitting at either the Armory not operating or at DPW where they're underutilized.
Right.
And so we hope to raise $250,000 through that auction and get old underutilized equipment off the books. Equipment that's in some cases insured, in some cases registered. And so that's going to be a standard operating procedure. In terms of new equipment, we now have a 4-year capital plan, rolling capital plan, that for the first time this year, we're going to integrate it with the school's capital plan and present to the FinCom and the school committee and the selectmen during this budget season, where all types of analysis is being done on long-term capital equipment needs. But most importantly, the objective is to retire equipment that has been sitting around and underutilized for a long time, raising that money, putting it in the treasury. It'll raise at least what we're asking for in this rack truck.
Yeah, so I guess through you, Vaughn, it's a matter of timing then, isn't it? So that if the auction comes out after special, then we don't have the funds available until after special, right? So in other words, you need the money in advance of the auction. Is that why you can't use that as a source for this
We
article?
couldn't use that money in the auction, from the auction anyway. That would go directly into the general fund.
That goes,
Right now.
well, I'm just saying as a source, you can't make that a source during a special?
We couldn't, because we haven't raised it yet.
Okay.
Can't use a source of funding that we don't actually have the money.
Right.
Oh,
think
before,
it's what Mr. Cost
ahead
is
enough,
saying.
okay, okay.
And we're going to do that every year, auction off or trade in older equipment, so we're not insuring it, registering it, and letting it sit out and
Okay.
be subject to the weather.
So following up on through you, is there any knowledge of when free cash will be certified so that we know whether or not that's a source, or is that definitely going to be pushed out past special? Because I know it's kind of early this year.
Well
It's going to be past special. Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
David, we'll probably look at December.
In the past, Mr. Lurie, we did get it in October, though, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Mr. Anzavino, do you have a question?
Good evening. Can you tell me which truck you're getting rid of?
Yes, truck 48.
Truck 48. And that will be traded in, or is that going to be one of your auction off items?
It won't be in the auction because we'll miss that time frame. By the time we get this new truck, it'll be
Okay,
5,
okay.
6 months. So
So
we'll either auction it
You'll
next
get-
time.
Or try and get some value for it on trade.
Correct. We'll get some
You're not
value
gonna
at some
start-
point.
You're not going to start collecting,
I promise you that, John.
you're not going to start collecting the old trucks again.
I get nervous with club.
And that, now see, I didn't write it down right away, and that was truck number 48?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, Mark, you have another question?
Yes, thanks.
You're
I was
welcome.
trying to remember through you. On this truck, is it going to have the power lift rear gate?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see that in the quote.
It's in there.
I didn't hear the question.
Mark, could you please repeat the question?
Oh, I was wondering if this vehicle was going to have the power lift gate, if that's what it's called, I forget.
Hydraulic tailgate.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it in the quote.
Just a one-page, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah. Yeah, see, all we got was the,
That was in the original.
okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 14, Truck Public Works? Okay, any questions or comments from the public on Article 14, Truck Public Works?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Chet,
May I?
you have a question?
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Hi, Paul. How are you? Mr. Cole.
Couldn't be better, Chad.
Is this truck going to have a plow? I didn't see it on the specifications.
No, no plow.
No plow? Okay. I was just asking.
Good question.
Most of the
That's a
vehicles
good
we
point.
buy have plows on them. That's
Yeah.
why I'm asking. Okay, thank
Get
you.
them on everything.
All right, thank you for that, Chet.
Good point.
Questions or comments from the public on Article 14, Truck Public Works? Okay, hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 15, Fire Alarm System Upgrades at Cedar Hill.
Chief, would you join us? Have a seat, Chief.
Excuse me. The fire alarm system at the golf course right now, antiquated, outdated, all of those synonyms that you'd like to use. Can't get parts for them. All of the above. The chief can speak more to it, more eloquently than that, but it's just time.
Sure. So good evening, Chief Carroll. So the system in there has been antiquated. I think back when there was some sort of addition done, the system that they have in place doesn't actually cover the whole building. The attic area under Mass General Law 527 1.0 and then subsection 1.1.4, that's our responsibility, the owner, which is the town of Stoughton, is to make sure that all fire protection is updated and in good working condition. I can tell you after a couple of inspections and walkthroughs with the building commissioner, building inspector, that it needs this update. So working with the facilities, Paul Jaffoon, we've walked through with a vendor and got that quote that's, I think it was added to this article. So, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, thank you. So we'll just come out of there, just be coming out of there.
All right. Mark, do you have a question?
Yes, through you. When was that renovation done? That you noticed that there was deficiencies?
Oh, no, so the renovation wasn't done, the renovation was done, I believe, in the 70s or something. I just know that, you know, in one of the big pushes we have is to start going through even town buildings and make sure the fire alarm systems are protected. They had some work done up in the attic, some of it insulated, and noticed that there's no fire protection up there, which was of great concern to mine.
I can imagine.
So basically,
Good with that, Mark? Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Joel, do you have a question? Okay.
Paul, this is Edwards Fire Alarm that I'm familiar with. Is this compatible or similar to other ones we have in the town, or do we have Simplex, or what do we have? Go ahead.
You done? It's not similar to other ones that we have, but I know that again, I'll let the chief speak to this more accurately, but the way that the alarms are reported are all through the same manner, which is through a radio box, monitored at dispatch currently. Is that correct?
Yes, but Joel, I think you're asking the system that is being installed, correct?
Well, typically what happens
Simplex
is...
or one of the operating systems, correct? Not rather than how it comes in?
No, I mean, the real reason I'm asking the question is I've worked with Simplex before, and they've come back to the facilities manager and said, we're the only ones who can do any maintenance on this friggin' system, and you're going to have to pay whatever we tell you to. So I guess my question is, are we in a situation like that, or is this something that we'll be able to maintain with whoever we want?
Well, we're in a situation, apologize. So through you, Mr. Chairman, we're in a situation where the parts are so, the system is so old, there is no way to upgrade it or work on it or fix it. The
existing system?
The existing system.
Yeah, no, that I understand, yeah. But on the new system...
Oh, no, this is going to be an addressable panel. There'll be an addressable panel at the entrance. Yeah, everything's going to be updated. I even requested a relay put into the, they now have, you know, a small entertainment, like two-piece or one singer, but when the fire alarm system goes on, a relay goes in, so it mutes the music, so the alarms...
No, I understand that. Well, my question is that when you install the new system,
yes,
is Paul stuck with using the Edwards company to do all the maintenance at whatever charge they want to do?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
No, I don't believe so. You're asking, like Simplex, is
Yes.
system proprietary?
Yes.
You need the manufacturer to come in?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Anzavino, you have a question?
Were you considering this would be coming out of the Cedar Hill Enterprise to pay for this, or are they looking for borrowing? don't get me wrong, obviously, if the system's out of date, the town owns it. You got to protect the town. So I'm just curious. We're just trying to keep track of where we might be looking at things.
Yeah,
It's a small amount of money, so.
I'm not trying to avoid your question, but our responsibility is that if something is deficient, especially a life safety system, let's get it fixed and we'll figure out how to pay for it later. So I don't know.
Except you're not-
I don't know the answer to
You're not
that.
supposed to be able to buy it unless you have the money to do it. So,
So I guess.
Mr. Chairman, just respectfully, yes, it's respectfully, when we do an article, we're told, and tell me we're wrong, and we'll react differently. We've never tried to determine how it's going to be paid for or financed. Isn't
but
that typically?
it's funny because the Board of Selectmen policies from 2020 state that when an article is brought to be inserted, all the information is supposed to be there to make an informed decision, and one of those things is the cost to it and the funding source, a recommendation. Now, obviously, you're not going to tie it down, but, I mean, a lot of these things would have never even been inserted in this particular article, this particular warrant, because a lot of the information wasn't available at the time.
Okay.
I'm just, then I'll ask the question a different way. Is there sufficient funds in the retained earnings in the enterprise fund to pay for this article?
Mary Jane's looking that up. If there is, we'll use retain. I'm not accustomed to answering how we finance. I truly thought that was the purview of your committee.
Ultimately.
But having said that, my recommendation, we use retained earnings first and then borrowing second.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Lauren, do you have a question?
Wouldn't this be under the regional 911? Would that?
No, not necessarily, because this is, the Regional 911 doesn't maintain and operate fire alarm systems within a property. If we would to do that, what would stop from every master box in town, right? So there are commercial buildings that have those. I wouldn't want to open the 911 grant up to replacing everybody's fire alarm system. We will run fiber optics to Cedar Hill, so the communication can get back to that dispatch. And I know that is in the plan, but once we get inside the building, that's the town's responsibility. That's the owner's responsibility.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, through you, Vaughn, just a quick question. You ran through everything because there was some renovation. How, since we have, experts in terms of like, is a building safe? Is the mechanicals, the electrical, the stove, and things that is the building, at above average in terms of safety? Are there things about the building that need to be thought through in terms of avoiding ever having to use an alarm system? So hopefully we keep that alarm system quiet for a long time. How is the building? Is the building,
Yeah, the building is safe for the most part. We're always going to try and improve life safety systems, though. So we're always going to need to upgrade fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, and things like that. So to say that, to try to avoid to purchase new.
No, I guess you didn't. Yeah, I'm just wondering how the condition of the building is.
So
it's not going to have, it's not at a high risk of using it where the fire alarm would have to go off.
So I don't mind speaking to this through you, Mr. Chairman. So I would say that this has been well needed for a while after seeing the system and getting up and doing a real good inspection of the attic and understanding. But I think what you see is this is part of the problem of success, right? The building, the golf course is doing real well, and the vendor in there is doing real well, right? So the occupancy is changed a little bit. It's not just the old Cedar Hill where you play golf, might go in on your, on your turnaround on your ninth, after the ninth, and then go back out. What you're seeing is they're hosting events here. They're and I guess they're pretty lively, over the weekends. So in doing that, we noticed that let's really protect this the right way. It's something that should have been done. Why it wasn't, whether it was a year ago or further, I'll take responsibility for the past couple of years, but it's something that opened my eyes when we went through and looked at and inspected the attic. And then I know we want to widen, we're requesting to widen the doorway, which the building inspector, that's his purview, so he'll be in control of that, and he's working with them to get that done. So I think it's just, it's not necessarily a change in occupancy, but it's just busier. And,
Yeah,
and
well,
I think
yeah.
but I would say the building is safe. We did a great walkthrough.
Well, yeah, I think through you, Vaughn, is the fact that if the system is failing, is there other aspects of the building that are also failing? That's kind of where the thought came into my head that, wow, the building is getting up there in years. Are the other aspects that are the production of the building much further ahead than the fire alarm system? And this is like the last thing
Mr.
for
Chairman.
safety that's needed.
Yes. First, Mr. Coulter has something to say, but Mr. Lurie, I'd like to mention that we don't want to deviate too far from the actual article.
No, well, the actual
we're not
article is
building
about fire safety.
Yes, I know.
I just want to know if the building is safe. If this is the only thing that's faulty,
Thank you.
then that's a really good thing, because then the building would be really
Well, I
terrific.
think it's great to see an article that's going to protect the life and property in a town-owned building. I think it's great to see this. Mr. Coulter, did you have something to add?
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, I just want to assure Mr. Laurie that at the beginning of the year, we asked the fire department to do an inspection, and there were several recommendations. Others we handled within our budget to make sure the building is up to code and safe because of the increased usage of the building. This is the only one that we're looking for funding on. The other improvements have already been made.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Dave? Any other questions or comments from the committee? Elliot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on the ventilation system for the kitchen. Has that been, I guess they clean them out, spray them down with lye or something like that. Has that been done?
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I need, a short answer.
Thank you. That's a good question, Elliot, because it could cause a fire. Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 15, fire alarm system upgrades at Cedar Hill? Okay, any questions or comments from the public? Article 15, fire alarm systems upgrades at Cedar Hill. Please identify yourself for the record. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street.
1096 Park Street. I'm a direct abutter of Cedar Hill. I've also been on the Cedar Hill various committees for 47 years. This is a cement block building. It's not a wooden building. All of the systems over the ranges, the stoves, those are done, checked annually, so that if there's anything wrong in the fryolator, the powder comes down, all of that kind of stuff is kept up. But as a previous speaker mentioned, there are people now that come there to dine or enjoy the entertainment, and they do stay there for several hours. It's not an in and out operation like it used to be. The building has been renovated at least 3 times, and so it's about time to update the fire alarm system. I did not hear yet how much money is in the reserve. Even committee members aren't given this information.
Yes, Mr. Coulter.
Is your mic on? I can't hear you.
That was my fault. I'm sorry. We know the retained earnings do far exceed this request for a capital investment. Mary Jane doesn't have access to it right now. But what I will say is that once we can determine that the money's in retained earnings, we're going to ask for that as a funding source. Now, the question is going to be on timing. Isn't that correct? Prior to it. If there are retained earnings from last year, and I'm 99% certain there are, then we can use that. If it's retained earnings for this year, we have to wait until free cash is certified.
Well, thank you very much for that. Could we get an email with that? Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mr. Jaffoon, did you want to add anything else on this? No? Okay. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Article 15, fire alarm system upgrades at Cedar Hill. Okay. Any other questions, comments from the public? Article 15, fire alarm systems upgrades at Cedar Hill. Hearing none. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is Article 16, roadway resurfacing.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, just by way of introduction, as you'll note, we're asking for streets and underground water, sewer construction projects to be considered in the special town meeting. The reason for that is we didn't get to start these construction projects until the very end of this construction season. It gave us very little lead time to buy out the pipe, buy out some of the materials and supplies that are needed for this, so we paid a premium price. By taking this article up at the fall town meeting, it's not going to be used until bond council signs off on it, and then we can get involved in the very beginning of the construction season, buy pipe cheaper, buy material cheaper, negotiate. So it's just a matter of timing. We're still not going to do the work until next year. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you. Yep, so we're going to hopefully pick up where we left off. We're still finishing paving from this construction season, and as the town manager alluded to, next week will be the beginning of October, so we're cutting it pretty tight with all the paving we did this season. We were able to sneak it in, thankfully, because of a contractor who is willing to work with us and move us ahead of some other people. But we're trying to avoid that this year and move the schedule up, certainly. Town meeting was gracious enough to give us $2.6 million to pave 33 streets. We've done all but a few of them. Yeah, we have 4 remaining to top final coat, and we'll be ready for the winter. So this article will pick up where that program left off, and hopefully keep the ball rolling for years to come.
All right. Elliot, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Is Central Street on the to-do list, the honey-do list?
Did you say Central Street?
Yeah.
So, no, it's not. Central Street, we call them the main roads, Central Street, Bay Road, Plain Street, all the larger thoroughfares there. We like to use the Chapter 90 money for those, so we'll be doing that. And the state, I think, would rather give us the money for those roads than the neighborhood roads. So we know there is work to be done there, and we will do it in the near future using Chapter 90 funds. But Central Street is not within this article, no.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Coulter.
I think you already know this. Just want to note again that we have to coordinate the selection of these roads with the Water and Sewer Department so that we make sure that we're not paving roads that 2 years from now we have to do the water and sewer. So this and the next article on underground infrastructure has been coordinated between the 2 department heads, and that's how these roads are chosen, in addition to the target roads that we'll do with Chapter 90 money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You're welcome. Any other? Chet, you have a question?
Yeah, you stole my thunder, Mr. Coulter. I wanted to make sure that all the roads that are being paved had sewage hooked up or water mains, whatever has to be done. But I do want to applaud Paul and his team for the amount of roads that have been paved. I mean, last year my area, North Stoughton, only a few roads were done. This, all over town, and all the roads are being paved. It's awesome. And I just want to make sure that, like you said, Mr. Coulter, that all the the water mains infrastructure is done before we start paving. That's
right.
all. Thank you. And
Chet,
thank
the
you,
real
Paul.
credit goes to the citizens of Stoughton
No, I understand.
for approving it.
Yeah.
We thank you for that.
Kudos to Paul and his team.
Thanks.
Okay, Mark, you have a question?
Yes. For these roads that you have set up, or this article itself, is it covering the beginning of paving season till June? Or is it covering the beginning of paving season until the end, like October? Is this only for like the remainder of this half year, and then in the spring you're gonna ask for more paving from June on? Like, what time frame does this cover?
This article would cover the time frame of the construction season of fiscal '24. So let's call it mid-April to mid-October of '24.
Right, so April to October. It's not going to be April to June.
Nope.
And then an annual town meeting, you're not going to want from June to October. This is going to cover.
I hadn't planned on it, but if
But
that's
so going forwards, though, is this going to be done every special town meeting, or are you going to have it so you can set it up at annual town meeting for the next year, since it's in the calendar year?
Given the timing, Mark, and the advantages it gives us when we bid it in the fall for the following construction season, we would prefer to put it out at the special every year, and then give us those 4 months to properly bond it, properly borrow the money at best rates, properly buy out all the equipment, all the piping, all the asphalt, and it gives us tremendous flexibility to find best pricing by doing it at the fall town meeting. And then we would not do it again at the annual.
Right, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is it going to be twice a year, or,
Once a year.
you're just going to do it at the fall? Not,
Yes, sir.
okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Anzavino, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple, just to keep you going. The list you have in here, is this your priority of how you would do the streets? Just curious. Because they're not alphabetical. That's why I was wondering if it was by priority.
not necessarily. When we look at it, we look at areas for less mobilizations and, for just efficiencies.
Understandable.
That's how they're grouped in here.
Okay.
But as the town manager said, some of these streets have newly have recently had water mains replaced, so those streets are on here. And then streets that will have water mains replaced within Article 17, hopefully, those streets are on here too.
And I assume you've, as in the past, the utilities have been notified that if they have any work to do, better get it done, or you'll be repaving the road for us?
That's correct.
Right. I assume you still have that policy. Once a road is paved, it's 5 years before you dig it, or you do it curb to curb?
5 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
John, the only ones that don't always cooperate, as you pointed out, is the gas company.
Yeah, well, because they claim it's an emergency.
Right,
But they still have to pave the road.
right.
All right, and you don't have this cash laying around, right? I assume we're going to be borrowing this. Just making sure,
We wanted 30,000 for the fire alarm, remember?
No, I applaud you for taking the initiative, because obviously if you can get it done now and go out for bidding before the season is here and everything is hot, I understand that. I think it's a very good proactive way to go, and we may have to change them from specials to fall if you're just going to be doing it every fall. Might have to do a charter change on that, So, thank you.
Dave, you have a question?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm happy to see that our town's getting paved roads. I drive through parts of other towns, and I'm so happy that we're not like those towns, okay? So I love the work. I guess I'm just a little confused about, almost like piggybacking off of Mark's question about like the timing, because I can't even remember, and maybe it's because my feeble brain, I don't remember spending millions of dollars on resurfaced road articles. I just don't even remember. I know that we've probably been depending a lot on Chapter 90 money for stuff we had seen along the way, and that a lot of roads were ignored for a long time, and now we're just starting it. So I guess my question is, long range, you're talking about bringing it up all the time in the special or fall, and, is this going to be just till we catch up, and then in year FY '28, we're caught up, and then we don't have to see another article for 10 more years? Like, what is it going to be like cash flow-wise over time?
Good question. So the fall town meeting idea was the town manager's. I'll give him credit when Mr. Anzavino said it was a good idea. If you think it was a bad idea, it was town manager's too. So we have 397 streets in Stoughton. Now, I'm not saying every single one of them needs to be paved tomorrow, but we have not done so much paving that we should have been in the past that we are trying to catch up now. And if we can pick 30 of these neighborhood roads off for, let's say we have 30 roads for 5 cycles. I don't know if that's 5 years. I'll say 5 cycles. We're getting close to halfway to the total number of streets in town, right? So we will catch up at some point. And these roads that we're doing, that we're asking for, should last 20, 25 years.
Yeah, and through you, Vaughn, that's kind of what I meant. It's exactly what I'm looking for, because I'm wondering, like, when you do catch up, like, isn't there a way in which we could get ahead of it where we're only spending like $250,000 every year for a road or two, instead of $2 million for 5 years in a row, caught up. Now we're going through the hey, it's free, we got free roads for 10 years, and all of a sudden, boom, we're hit with another cycle of big hits like this,
Yeah, I mean, but at some point, everything's going to catch up, right? And we need to make the investment. So, and like I said, we've neglected to do it for so long, and it really has to be done. So, the way that we thought going into, I'd say this time last year for the Springtown meeting, was that maybe we just ask town meeting and see how it goes. And town meeting, again, was great. And hopefully town meeting will be great again, because as soon as we got the money and we could spend it, we spent it. So,
yeah, I think.
I mean, if you give us the money, we're going to spend it right away.
Yeah, through you, but I just want to make the comment. I just think, that once it is caught up, I think instead of letting things get away from us where we end up like, a good example is like, not charging anybody for trash for 3 years and then boom, where you could use the same analogy. If you let the roads go too long and then all of a sudden, oh my God, we got to get hit with this for, $2 million a year for 5 years.
Sure.
That wouldn't it be better if we just stayed ahead of it with small little, once a year, little tiny articles instead of big ones?
Mr. Chairman, it'll be a wonderful day in the town when we get to that point, right? What we're going to do, David, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. What we're going to do, what Paul's going to do, we're going to continue to present to the Finance Committee, to the Board of Selectmen, and to town meeting members, a responsible plan to keep Stoughton, it's part of the beautification and the upkeep of the community. We're going to do that every year. The governing body will decide whether it wants to spend that money or not. But Paul's responsibility, and he knows this, is to keep our road system in good repair. And that means we'll keep coming back to you until they're all in good repair. And then I agree with your point, Dave. Then we do the maintenance. We hope that can be done in the next, well, we're all still here. But then it's really it's the governing body's decision whether we want to keep doing that or not. But we'll keep pitching if you keep you keep funding.
Okay. I think Selectman Gito would like to say something, yeah. Please identify yourself for the record.
Lou Gito, 1261 West Street, and member of the Board of Selectmen. We have a report that was done, I believe, in 2021 or thereabouts, that showed that I think we have somewhere on the order of $40 million worth of roadways that need to be fixed. Some of them were in deplorable condition, and some of them were only in reasonably poor condition. So the reasonably poor conditions roads, as the years go on, will continue to deteriorate until we fix them. So I would suggest you might take a look at that report. It might help you in terms of getting an answer to your question.
Thank you very much for that, Selectman Gito. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on roadway resurfacing, Article 16? I'd like to thank you, Mr. Jaffoon, for bringing this forward and just basically putting it on the table. It hasn't been done in years. It has to get done. I mean, I think in the big picture, no one's really going to want to hear the dollars, but this is where we are, and the roads are where they are. So thank you for that. I appreciate the fact that you put in the list of roads with the RSRs in there too, which is road service rating. So if anybody wanted to look at that, I think it's pretty good just to have that included in the article or the backup material for the article, so town meeting members can look at this and say, okay, this is where we are on this. Just wanted to say that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on this? Article 16, roadway resurfacing. Questions or comments from the public? Article 16, roadway resurfacing. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements.
Mr. Chairman, as you perhaps know, Phil will be leaving the organization at the end of October. He has agreed to work with us through the end of October on this plan and help us recruit a replacement for water and sewer before his departure, and to remain actively involved with us with any questions we have moving forward. So Mark Tisdale and I are meeting with Phil and his engineering team, outside engineering team, on Monday to transfer these projects over to Mark and myself, and we'll be working with his engineering team on this underground plan.
Well, thank you for the information on that. So who's going to be presenting? Do you want to present this, Mr. Jaffoon, or Mr. Coulter? Article 17, or do you want us to just take questions?
So,
You want to go with
yeah,
the
and
question?
I know you're used to this by now, but it's on the paper here. We need to replace water mains. Just the same conclusions can be made about where we are and how we got there and why we need to do it. And there's $3 million worth of projects I believe you have in your backup. And again, those roads are on the paving list in conjunction with that. So once this work's done and it's paved, hopefully I'll never have to go down those roads again.
And Mr. Chairman, I want to say that having been here almost a year, I should have known this. We don't use contractors to do this. In most, probably 90% of the cases, it's our own infrastructure crews that are doing this construction installation. So we don't have the same challenges we do with having to manage or retain or sign up or get under contract.
Is this for roadway and water main?
This is for water mains and sewer.
Okay, I didn't know if your comment was based on both. That's why.
Some of them we will hire a contract, the majority we will not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions or comments from the committee? Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements. Mr. Lurie.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I was doing some research on the TIF agreements that were rolling off from the water because we had to take care of tying into the MWRA back in the day. Then we took certain businesses and we created TIFs for them to help pay for that. And now we're in the years now in which those TIFs are rolling off. So I did some math, and in the past 2 years, we picked up about $800,000+ in new revenue that's going right into the general fund, available for whatever it is that we appropriate. But what's interesting too is that over the next 2 years, from FY24 through FY25, we're picking up $122,687,000 in TIF money. I wanted to see whether or not, since that's consistent, taxes that have been paid not only for the past 20 years by these companies, but they would continue to pay for maybe the next 20 years, that would be a funding source for the bonds on this particular article. So I just wanted to make sure that we can have the bonds paid for against the TIFs that we're already rolling off.
That would be earmarking the revenues coming into the town for this. We can't do that.
Okay, then a different question on the same basis. The leadership in the town has the ability to move the levy, reduce the levy by $122,000 in order to make room in the budget, in the operating budget, to make room for debt service inside the budget. Correct?
We didn't have a bunch of money left over when we finished the budget last year.
No, I guess through you, Vaughn, I guess we're in the budget year going in to the FY25. They can take money off of FY25 in order to make room for the bond.
I don't know if anyone else wants to speculate what the select board would do, but I'm not willing to speculate what they'll do.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is as a recommendation, this body can make a recommendation that they lower the levy enough to cover this, since they're picking up TIF money from the same water fund that they created 20 years ago.
I guess that's a discussion when we come time to vote on this. I mean, if there's a question in regards to the article,
It's a question in regards to funding source.
Okay.
Well, he didn't have $2 million for the roads. I don't think he's got $3 million for the water, so.
Mr. Coulter, do you have anything to add to this?
I think you did very well, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Joel.
Just to pick up on what Dave just talked about, I was under the assumption that the $3 million we're talking about here would be covered by the enterprise fund. Is that correct?
It would be in the enterprise fund, it'd still be borrowing.
No, I understand it'd still be borrowed, but it would be part of the enterprise fund.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The debt service, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements. Do we offhand know if the state's offering it? I know every now and then they have some special, deals, I guess is the nicest way to put it. Programs. Do we know if there are any special programs at this point in time for like 0% financing or anything like that?
In fact, there are. I don't have the details, Mr. Chairman, with me right now, but I do remember a discussion just a week or two ago where we were making out applications for 0% financing for some of our projects. We will research that and get you an email as well tomorrow on what that is.
All right, thank you. I just know in the past there have been things like that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements. Diane.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just because he asked that question, what is the borrowing rate currently?
Good evening, Mary Jane Martin, interim town accountant. We have an email to our bond company and the council, and we have not yet heard back what the current rates are, so we can get that for you as soon as we hear.
Well, thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, I can't lose that opportunity to restate what I've said many times. As we enter this budget season, it's so important that we do the best we can to extinguish the use of free cash from our operating budget. And I met with the superintendent at great length today. He and I are on the same page with regard to that challenge. If we don't, we are at risk of our bond rating dropping. And if our bond rating drops, our interest rate skyrockets. And that would imperil all these projects we're talking about. It would make it cost prohibitive, whether it's schools or infrastructure or roads. So I can assure the Finance Committee we're going into this planning year. We started today going through joint costs with the superintendent, and we're going to do everything in our power to extinguish in this fiscal 25 that free cash from the operating budget.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements. Questions or comments from the public? Article 17, water main upgrades and improvements. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 22, implementing a Town of Stoughton communication program.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jaffelin.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, we did not receive anything on this article. So I just letting people know we don't have any information at all.
All the information we have available, Mr. Vice Chairman, is stated within the article.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lou Gito, do you want me to go through that? 1261 West Street, Stoughton. Why Article 22? Why do we want to implement a Town of Stoughton communication program? I think it seems like a simple answer, but the answer seems to be so trite. We as human beings support what we believe in, and we're suspicious of things that we don't believe in. In our day and age, everybody has a voice that can be heard through social media and otherwise. Every camp has a following. In gridlock, not progress is oftentimes the norm. But if we want to make progress in the town, then we must be on the same page. We have basically 2.5 forms of government in the town. We've got the executive, and we have the representative town meeting. We also have the general public, and all 30,000 of us have a say in some of the major things that need to occur in town. So, when we start to think about how the town can do business, it has to be trusted. We have to be able to answer the questions that people ask. We've got to be able to get out in front of issues and not let the rumor mill sort of gobble us up. I participated or listened to a webinar just the other day from the MMA. Many communities have public information officers. They have websites that actually people that are geared toward the citizens, not toward having sort of smokestacks that of each little department, but more geared to how financial operations work, how personnel operations work, how other things work, how you find things in town. We've got to get into the 21st century. We see gridlock everywhere. I mean, you only have to open up the paper, look at your iPhone, do anything at all. We're sitting around wondering whether the government's going to shut down. The town, the school, has hired a information officer and has several people working on its website and its information. We're not in that position, but we need to be. And that's basically why this article is here. I mean, that doesn't sound terribly hard to figure out, but the consequences of not being able to communicate with 30,000 people in the town who are voters and who will make decisions on very major projects is a big problem. We don't do that well. We have a library director who put together his own website for the library just this past year. This is the second website that he's developed. He did it in Maryland in a county library system, so he has experience in doing that. We have a fire chief who's developing his own fire website. Both of those people have a pretty good understanding of how important it is to be able, for a person to be able to get on a web page and with a couple of clicks, a couple of whatevers, movements, they can find what they want. And if they can't find it, then they get off the website. They go somewhere else. Many towns, as I said, have a public information officer, generally sitting with the town manager, that looks at what's going on in town. If there are things that need to be dealt with, that information is available to everybody. The people, in fact, have to know that the town knows what's going on within the community, and the town gets that information out rather than sitting back and letting the rumor mill sort of gobble it up and spend more time trying to deal with the issues that come from all the misinformation, just to try to get to even ground, not to get ahead. Has anybody not seen that? I mean, really. We need to get into the 21st century. On a side note, not related to just the information systems, there are simulation programs that people use. You see on TV, you see on any number of things that allow a person to walk through a simulated wall or something else. So we could, in fact, if we were going to have a large project in the downtown or somewhere else, we could build that and show that to people so that they could say, oh, we don't want it quite like that, we'd like it like something else. So you all get together. Yeah, I put this article in, I had it in for $170,000. Town manager and I looked at it and said, well, you know, maybe there are other ways to do it. So I would be happy to turn it over to him he manages the town. I don't do that. But I have a pretty good idea what the 21st century looks like, even though I'm probably the oldest person in this damn room.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Gito and I have spent countless hours on this issue and have engaged in very spirited debate. But we do agree on one thing. The citizens of Stoughton thirst for information. It's why we have so many public information sessions that we do. It's why we've put screens up at DPW, in the library, downstairs in the lobby, and on SMAC to continually run events, information on current events happening in the town. It's why we do a back page of the town crier. Lou is correct, though. That may be reactive versus proactive. As you look at any community, as you look at any utility, any hospital, any university, there are public information officers whose primary job is to get out in front of their stakeholder group and provide good, solid, defensible information on real time. We spend a lot of time in this room, whether it be on solid waste or healthcare or water or sewer or whatever, the budget, trying to make sure people have good information so they don't fill that void with misinformation. It's a societal problem. And the website is a big part of that. The difference between the library and the fire department is they're talking about one department. The town website is trying to talk about the entire organization. It's very difficult. We're Trish and her new intern, who's a website specialist, have taken feedback from Lou, and we're making those changes. That won't be enough. Public information has got to be something that is pushed out into the community on a daily, regular basis, whether the person is at the coffee shop in the morning to provide good information or at every public meeting to provide good information. The citizens deserve it, they thirst for it, and I think what Mr. Gito is asking for, and I completely support his request, is that we make the modifications to the website that make it user-friendly. We spent $30,000 building it a little over a year ago, but it's not as, it's a good website. It's not as iterative as we want it to be. I think it's excellent, but if it's not user-friendly, people aren't going to look at it. And so Lou has had some ideas. Trish has got some magnificent ideas for it. We're working on that every day. But in addition to that, I think what Lou is advocating for is that person whose full-time job it is to connect with our public, with you, with our stakeholders, with our leaders on an ongoing basis. I can tell you, these are long days, and it's 6 to 7 days a week, but we're still not meeting our mark. I think our outreach is better than it's ever been, and our efforts are tireless, but we're still not, as long as people in the community have misinformation, it means we're not doing enough. So here's the dilemma. Lou is asking for a public information officer. I completely agree. The issue is on funding. Free cash is not freed up. The Finance Committee controls the reserve account. You may or may not conclude that this is an unforeseen or emergency situation. That's your call. I'm searching high and low to find out where we could find the funding before FY25. And so we put that issue on the table. Lou feels strongly about this, and I love his passion. I appreciate his vision. What we've debated over more than anything else is how do we pay for it? Lou, do you have other comments?
None. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 22? Mr. Anzavino, you want to go first this time?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to get something clarified. I'm looking at the motion, and it said that, as far as implementing the Town of Stoughton Communication Program, consisting of, 1, training department heads and boards under the appointing authorities of the Select Board, the Town Manager, and Public Information Officer. Is that Public Information Officer the one you're talking about that exists now in the schools?
No, it would be a town employee.
Okay.
It would be a new hire, John.
Because number 2 is hiring a communication manager.
Right.
So are we talking 2 people?
No, that's the same person.
It's the same person.
But you see the confusion when you don't use the same titles?
So I'm glad you asked.
That is entirely my fault.
Well, I'm just, I'm just saying, that's why I asked,
Yeah.
because you mentioned the public information officer.
One person.
At the schools, but, so that would be one and the same. And then you already addressed the fact when you talked about creating a new town website, and I thought we just did that, but,
No, not a new one. It'll be a modified website.
all right.
Just an updated website.
And so this 100,000 that you're looking for would be the salary for this new person?
Salary and benefits.
And benefits?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very
I
much.
would like to address one part of what you said, Mr. Anzavino, if I might, because I forgot to mention it. But it's important. We have a number of boards and committees in town that hold meetings.
Excuse me.
And we do nothing to train them. We have some meetings that sort of go off the rails from time to time. And we need to help one another as much as possible. Now, I don't know how much that would cost to do that. The town manager, I think, has some ideas on doing it, and it's something that may be a very low-cost item. But it needs to be done because it helps to deal with some of the lack of respect, lack of trust between the town and the citizens of the town. So I had left that off of my presentation initially, and I thank you for raising it when you asked the question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gito. And I assume, like the training, that's what you're alluding to, training them as far as how you run meetings and so forth, simple things. I know years ago we used to bring town council in and actually gave class to boards and committees on the open meeting law, just so they understood what was going on. That's when Brian used to do it in the state, and he used to come in and do it for the town. Something to keep just to keep in mind.
To that point, John, through you, Mr. Chairman, we plan to reignite that schedule again. We pay that town council a lump sum, and it's for that precise purpose. So we're about to embark on a schedule throughout the fiscal year to start that retraining, conflict of interest, ethics, whole thing. But by way of example, I know what Lou is referring to. If we had this public information officer it's pushing out information again. As you know, we sent out the code of conduct again which was a policy passed last spring by the Board of Select Board, to every elected and appointed official. It's just sending it out is not good enough. You know, there has to be some ongoing communication to those boards and committees as to what the importance of that code of conduct is. And we got a response back from as many as 50% of the appointed and elected officials who indicated they're not going to sign it. Now, what that tells me is they don't quite understand the purpose or the mission or the reason for that code of conduct, and we own that responsibility. That's our fault, and we've got to explain it and push it out better. That's what a public information officer.
I've been meaning to actually, I'm glad you brought it up, and I'll make this quick. I've been meaning to write back to you on that, because as a town meeting rep, I'm assuming, and also with the board and everything, I got that email, and it said it went out to all the town meeting reps and everybody and so forth. Read the description on who it applies to. Boards and committees appointed by the selectmen, or select board, and the town manager. This committee is not appointed by them. Town meeting reps are not appointed by them. If you wanted that to apply to those people, you need to review your policy and correct it so that people maybe understand why you're looking for them to do it. That's all.
Sure, a fair point, John. That's the extent of the select board's authority, right? They can't impose that on other people. But I would think that people in town, if we were, back to the communications person, this isn't about the code of conduct. If we were communicating more effectively on how that makes us a better community, not because we impose, not because the board imposes it on them, but it makes us a better, more civil, more friendly community, I think more people would be interested in aligning themselves with that code of conduct. It's just that, to Lou's point, he has made this point, and we've discussed it in my office so many times that I now get it. We're not doing a good enough job at cascading good things. And that's what this person's about, bringing it back to the original point.
But I just wanted to point that out when you brought it up, because I read it and I said, this doesn't even apply to half the people they're sending it to. So
I would argue it applies to everybody. It can't be mandated on everyone.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, the way it's written, people read it and they say, well, I'm not one of them. So that's all.
Right, Joel, you have a question? Article 22, right? Absolutely. Joel, you're next.
I don't have any questions about the concept, which I believe is good. I don't have any questions about what we need to do, which I think you are correct. My only question is something, Mr. Coulter, you referred to a little earlier. Why are we doing this at a special town meeting? At the annual town meeting, we prepare an operating budget that would include any new positions so that we could see what the impact would be for the entire town budget. And I think that would be the most appropriate place to do it if we want to establish a new position. Unless you can convince the town meeting and this committee that it's absolutely necessary that we have to do it right now. I don't really see that, but that's up to you.
I take your point.
I hear
Thank
you
you for that, Joel.
But I would suggest that we should get on it, because we have, between now and July 1st is a long time. And we have a lot of things that we need to deal with in the town, starting with town meeting for next year. And so why not get a head start? I understand the point that you're making, but if we can do it, I would suggest we do it sooner. But that's your decision to make, and that's not mine.
But along with that, just to follow up on that, the article is calling for $100,000. I'm assuming that would be for a full year. And as you said, here we are in September. by the time you hire someone, are you looking for half the year? Because if you're coming to the FinCom saying hopefully they could do it, you know, that would be a third of the reserves. So, I mean, if you're really looking for 50, 60, that would be a very important point to get across.
That's a great point, John. That's a great point.
Lauren, do you have a question?
So this sounds to me like, oh, tell him no. This sounds to me like it's, I'm just imagining that if the position happens and this person educates everybody on different communication tactics and all that, wouldn't him or her's job be done after that? Like, is this going to be an ongoing position? Or would they kind of like, would it be a consultant kind of thing for one time?
Do you want me to
Go right
answer?
ahead.
From my point of view, the position is something that is a day-to-day position. It's a position, things happen in the community on a daily basis, and some of those things need to be reacted to. And the information, the actual information that the town has on those things should be put out as quickly as we can get that information out. The people who see something are on Facebook or whatever, X, whatever that might be, and put out their interpretation of it. And that interpretation may be right, it may not be right. But to the extent that it's not right, then in fact you create a discord in terms of what really is factual. And so you spend all your time dealing with that. And in the course of doing that, you change the dynamics. Where would you go if you wanted to find out whether you're well or not well? You would go to a doctor. Or you'd go to your financial person if you wanted to find out how you were doing with your financial information. So I guess that's where I'm going. Is that being helpful or not? Thank you.
Can I talk, Vaughn? Through you, Vaughn?
Do you have another question?
Okay. So do you have like a description of where this person would be communicating to the residents and where the residents would go to look for this information?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Communication's an ongoing process, 24/7. In response to events, we had that water issue a couple of months ago. I wrote that response that we published. We only got 4 responses after that information came out because it was full of facts, it was full of information, it was full of data, and it helped people understand that there was no threat to our water supply. The issue in 48 hours went away. In the absence of that clarity, I would bet we'd be still dealing with that issue today. There are issues that come up like that every day where the citizens deserve real-time, factual information. It's not something I can do part-time. It's not something I'm qualified to do part-time. But the need for information from this building and this government to the citizens is not an event. It's an ongoing process. In terms of how you do it, the medium is so many different approaches. It could be on SMAC, it could be in the newspaper, it could be on these rolling screens that we've installed. It could be public presentations. If this is a person's job, they're not going to do them quarterly or weekly, they're going to do them every day. It could be interviews on SMAC to deal with complex issues like the budget, like the capital plan, like why we're choosing which roads. We get calls every day accusing us of favoritism, that we're choosing your road over his road because you're on the finance committee. That's hypothetical. We need to clarify that real quickly and explain why that's happening. I got a call today from a wonderful citizen who registered her protest in such a classy and professional way about why she can't use a 64-gallon drum under the new policy. And Paul was able to reach her at 8 o'clock this morning and clarify it. But for every one we respond to quickly, there's 10 we miss. And that's, to Lou's point, what builds up the distrust or the information void. I mean, we've got a full-time job responding to people's requests. People pay us. There's 30,000 citizens. When they have a question or there's misinformation, they have a right to expect good information real time. There's just nobody here that's their full-time job. And that's why Lou has taken up this mission. And it is an ongoing, repetitive thing with it's an exciting job because it's a different subject matter every hour of every day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 22? Mr. Anzavino?
Just to your point, there are so many different ways to get information out. A lot of people are out there on Facebook. Case in point today, DPW put out, as they have been, just reminders. October 1st is coming, so forth. They put a flyer out that said you could use 32 or 35-gallon barrels.
John, that was in response to that lady's question.
Right. But, and then they were talking the bags and the barrels and this, but the question come up, well, wait a minute, you're saying this, but over here you said you could use any barrel. You can go up to a 65-gallon barrel. And it raised a question, why is it something here and it's something different here? And then they said they corrected it, they'd put it out, because for years, ever since I've been in town, only 44 years, there's always been a restriction to the size of your barrel, because the guys have to pick it up. And what people may not put together is very simple, is they're telling you no loose trash. They want them in bags. If it's a bigger barrel, they're going to be pulling the bags out, as opposed to picking up the bigger barrel to dump it. But just that happened today, and it was something that was fairly quickly resolved, but they put something out, the question come in, and they had to clarify, hey, mistakes happen,
John, you just made my point, actually.
Because you got to have the consistency.
That question in 6 public hearings never came up.
Exactly.
Never came up. So we can't address issues that sometimes aren't raised. The issue was raised for the first time this morning, and at 7:05 this morning, I read that lady's email. I forwarded it to Paul and said, you need to respond to this immediately. Paul had his work cut out for the day. It wasn't public information or public relations or anything like that. He's got a day job. That's making Lou's point. But we responded, and she thanked us, and then Paul immediately went online. Again, not part of his planned day. He wasn't building a road or collecting trash or counseling an employee. He immediately put it online because we're committed, as Lauren and I have discussed at great length, to communicating real time. That issue was never raised at public hearing. So when it was raised this morning for the first time, we made a judgment call that people should be able to use larger barrels as long as what's in those barrels are closed plastic bags that we can reach in and take out. We've had more than a half a dozen workers' compensation claims against the town for trying to lift 60-gallon barrels with no top on them that are full of water. That's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars in claims. But through the 6 public informations, nobody ever said that we're all wise. We have all wisdom. It's not like we misled anybody. The issue was never raised until this morning and dealt with immediately. The comment's not about solid waste. The comment is about getting information out to people real time. And Paul did that. I did that. It wasn't in our agenda for the day, but we did it. There were probably 10 other questions we missed. And that's the whole issue.
No, but I can understand the point of having, if somebody has a question and there's a central point to go to, they're more likely to get an answer quicker than trying to chase around through town hall to say, who do I talk to? And I can understand your reasoning for that. So.
That's the point.
But that, as you say, you were aware of it, but I happen to see that today, and excellent point.
Thank you, John.
Elliot, you have a question?
More of a comment than a question, perhaps.
I know you want to get this done. I think whoever the minister of truth is going to be must have, I said, whoever the minister of truth is, they should have their duties very clearly laid out. And if they're supposed to be a forwarding agent or somebody, so they get the information from the Public Works Department, they get it from this person and that person, and these various people that should be required to give them this information. And I think there's, not speaking for or against the merits of this, I just think that more time is needed, and we shouldn't rush to this special town meeting to do this without knowing exactly what that person's tasks are supposed to be, and that should be at a regular town meeting.
If I might respond.
Sure.
There are several communities that have these positions. It would not be hard to look at what those people do and put together something that would satisfy the need. It's not as though we have to start and do all of this ourselves. I mean, I've talked with some of these people already.
Could you tell me which people you talked to?
Yes, I've talked to the person in Weston who designed a new web system for them, and then I talked with the person who is doing that job now. I've talked with the assistant town manager in Easton. Those are the two towns that I've talked to. But I could do more than that within a heartbeat, as could the town manager or the human resource director. I mean, I'm just responding to you. The issue of whether or not it goes forward now or later is an issue that you can opine on. The point that you made, that there's an impediment to being able to do this in a faster time, I don't think is real. That's the difference in our views on that.
In terms of the position, we need to look no further than Stoughton Public Schools. They've got this full-time position on staff. Community liaison, communications coordinator, public relations, and he's a very effective, proactive young man who advocates with their school population on all issues school-related.
And I talked with him as well.
Would that person then replace the one in the school department? Or
no,
so we'd have some kind of redundancy?
That gentleman represents and advocates for all school-related issues. As you know, parents want to be kept abreast real-time of anything that happens, anything at all. You have to reach out to 1,200, I believe it's 1,200 students, parents. This person's full-time job is to advocate for all issues before the school, and he's gainfully employed. Now, that's one department. We've got 29 departments, or 28 departments. And yes, there's 3 other people in that department, in that public outreach communications department.
So this person would be representing the other departments?
He'd be representing the school departments.
No, I mean the new one that you,
Would
new
be
position.
representing the town departments, correct.
All the remaining ones?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mark, you have a question?
Yes, what department would this person fall under, and who gets the final say on what they get to print and not print?
He'd fall under my department, under the town manager's department, and I'd review everything that was pushed out publicly. I'm sorry. It would be in my department, and I would review anything that would be pushed out publicly.
Thank you.
Dave, you have a question?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you.
You're welcome.
To the previous speakers and the petitioner, I agree with, I was hoping I would be able to agree on this, but it seems like I can't get there. I feel like I'm in like a different universe living in Stoughton because nothing I heard matches anything I've experienced in town. And I'm talking about not just how I consume information. I feel like I'm probably on the heavier consumer of trying to find information about in town. I go to the town website. I go to, Facebook to look at Stoughton news. They don't allow me on Stoughton Enthusiast, but I know there's a different camp that talks over there. But for some reason, I can't see their information. So I guess I need my own information officer. But I don't really understand like the whole idea of a rumor. I see people having different viewpoints, and people get passionate about their viewpoints. I don't look at those as just because they don't agree with the decision a town makes, that they can't say, I don't agree with what the town just did. And then somebody saying, but I think it was a great decision, and they counterpoint, and they have that kind of discourse. And I think it's healthy when somebody either says, I have a different viewpoint, and somebody says, no, not so much. And then somebody puts out the wrong information, and somebody says, hey, did you realize that you're wrong? Because I just gave you a periodical of information that shows you're wrong. And they find out, oops, I guess I was wrong. And then they discover it. Community member to community member, resident to resident, they take care of information themselves. They don't need somebody centralized in a town who is trying to convince everybody that, hey, all our decisions are great ones. Come on board with what we're telling you. Because as if that would calm the waters with what you'd call rumors, which I just call discourse. I look at the town website. I mean, we've got alert notify me. If I want to get alerted to information that's critical, it can get pushed to my phone. I don't use it, but I'm sure some people do. If I wanted to get information about anything, it's on the website, and I have no problem navigating the website that we just invested a lot of money in. I think we also invest $7,500 a year. It's like some kind of a stipend to do the town crier. And the town crier comes to me. It comes in email. If a person doesn't have email, they can go to Facebook. They can go, if they can't get Facebook, they can get it right on the town website. It's always there. So that gives notices, announcements, interesting information comes to people. It gets pushed to them. But I think of like people who are heavy consumers, like I need a lot of information about the town. They know where to get it. They go and find it, and it's all there. Is there, through you, Vaughn, is there any information about the town that is not public right now? Like, is there any information that, gee, I wish we had this out there? Or is everything that's topical about things going on in town already available? Is it true that it is there if you wanted to find it?
All of our information is public information.
It's out there already, isn't it? I just don't see, in the world I live in, I don't see it. So if people have less interest in facts about the town, and I hope we're talking about facts and not just like, hey, come on board with this, my thinking about an article. I hope it wouldn't be editorial. But if it was just facts, if people don't want to find the facts, they probably aren't interested. Then why would you need an information officer to push information to people who don't care?
Ron,
So I don't see anywhere in the spectrum of different consumers of information where this would be valuable. I'm sorry, but I just don't
Ron,
see
I
it.
promise you this will be my last comment.
Yeah.
I don't want to drag you. I promise you.
Thank you
I'm
very
gonna
much,
give you
Mr. Coulter.
Great example. A great example. Facts are friendly. I take exception to any suggestion that we're just trying to push out our narrative. We're just trying to share facts, David. Now, let me finish, please. I stood in this room and heard people who I admire greatly talk about the location of the fire department and how it's going to sink into the abyss. We just spent $500,000 in a change order removing ledge from that site. It will not sink into the abyss. It's sitting on a rock pile. But we spent hours and geologists trying to share information about the suitability of that site and the drainage plan. In the coffee shop every day, there are people who are waiting for it to sink into the abyss. And we deal with that every day. Now, all that tells me is we did a less than good job in sharing information. That is one example. We did a 911 investment, as you know. It took me months to get the facts, push the facts out there about what 911 is and what it is not. Facts are friendly. It wasn't my opinion. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't, it can be proven to be true, but yet I still get calls and emails from every day with people with misinformation about regional 911. So it's not pushing out the selectman's narrative or your narrative or my narrative. Facts are friendly. And we still, Dave, I've never been in a situation like this. I represented 6 towns in the legislature. Decisions are made about what the information is among people that may or may not have access to that information. And then it becomes real. And then we spend all of our time disproving it. Now, who am I criticizing with that comment? My office. That means we're not doing a good enough job of pushing data out that we can stand behind. If we push data out that's false, then you need to take action and fire the people that are putting out the false information. I'll never put out an opinion. I just put out data. But yet I have to field misinformation in this town every single day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Coulter.
Through you.
Dave, do you have another question on this?
I'm
just asking.
I'm
just
having
checking.
some
just
thoughts
clarifying.
about what I'm
All right, thank
hearing,
you.
and I have comments or
All right, thank
questions
you.
about what I'm hearing. I just feel bad that you have to use the fire station as an example to make your point, because all you just need is more advocates fighting for people who really want to have the fire station. But that's another, I'm not going to get into a debate about the fire station.
Thank you for that,
It's
Dave.
just, but on the 911, the information was pushed out that said no to 911, and it didn't come from somebody, random in town who just, had a misunderstanding of the facts. And the facts came out naturally the way they should have, and I'm glad they came out the way they did. It landed okay. But that was information that came pushed out to the public from the town. So I don't, yeah, but it's not, it wasn't bad. I mean, it was good to get it out there as a conversation because it was important to a lot of people. They wanted to understand it. And then eventually you did a great job of communicating and getting everybody understanding it. And I applaud you for that. But it was like a natural thing that happened there. And I don't think, and what's interesting is that I don't think that this article solves it. Both of those examples, I don't see how an information officer pushing information out solves for people who think that a fire station is going to sink. I just don't. I don't understand how you can push information all of a sudden. Oh, now I believe it won't sink because I just heard it from our town's information minister of truth. I just don't feel like I understood. I paid attention to the facts as they came out, and I changed from my opinion. I actually was against the 911 move, and I changed my mind about it because of the good job you did. Just so you know.
That's the power of information.
Yeah, but I didn't need an information officer to do it, but it was a very healthy discussion, and I thought that the discourse that happened from it was done the right way. I don't think that hiring somebody is going to make your job any easier. Matter of fact, I just think it's one more layer of complication inside your office to try to get it done. I'm just dead set against this article altogether. I just don't understand it at all.
So you're against this article then, right? Thank you. Diane, you have a question?
I actually have a couple of comments, too. I'm sort of like with Elliot about saving this until the spring, but I do maybe have a workaround. You said you have a wonderful intern who knows how to do websites. Could we come up with a stipend for this person to do some of this information? One other thing, and true transparency, I do work for the school department. I know Jeff Pickett quite well, who gets one of the things we use, and we use quite effectively, is a parent help desk email. Kind of one of those gripey things. If somebody's got a gripe, they Just email that, and it's sent to the right person and taken care of. We also have a notification system that sends out, and truly, I wouldn't say we want to use Alert Stoughton all the time, but I don't care if I get one. It says there's a finance committee meeting tonight. Right? Maybe it can be called something other than Alert Stoughton or just Stoughton News. Because a lot of people, and you know I'm a big fan, and I'm still waiting for that sign out front, a lot of people will say, what's happening at the town hall? Why are there so many cars? Why? Because no one truly knows. One last comment, and I'm done. I go to a lot of websites. I think ours is a little cumbersome, the town one. It is, Dave said he finds things easily. I really don't, really don't. Today's news should be right smack dab, right in the front page of that website, and a lot of times you got to dig deep to find it. So I applaud. I think maybe this might be a good way to go, because we do need, I always feel that the best defense is an offense. Get the stuff out there. So I applaud you, Mr. Gito, for taking this on, but maybe the intern might help. No.
Chet, you have anything on this? John? No? Mark? Elliot? Okay. No? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 22, implementing a Town of Stoughton communication program. Any questions or comments from the public? Article 22, implementing a... Okay, please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Christine Iacobucci. It's 139 Chemung Street. Super quick. I just, I agree with maybe pushing it off to the other town meeting, only because the job that you're describing seems like more than one job. You're speaking about almost like a website planner and a communications specialist. And I think as a resident, there's like 5 different Facebook pages, right? There's the DPW, there's the town manager, then there's the town crier, then there's, do you know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, I'm gonna go against Dave that it is hard to find information. And I just think it needs to be streamlined, and then there does need to be a job description, I think, before you go to town meeting, so.
Well, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public? Article 22, implementing a Town of Stoughton communication program. Hearing none.
I would like to make a motion to continue this public hearing to Wednesday, October 4th at 7 p.m. in the Great Hall at Town Hall at 10 Pearl Street, Stoughton, Mass.
I am the Minister of Truth.
Are you seconding? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we will continue this public hearing then. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You still get item 18.
Item 18, any other matters relating to FY22 or 23 budget and special town meeting?
Wait a minute, we're not done.
Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Yeah, we didn't adjourn yet. We just continued the public hearing, yeah. Oh, Mr. Coulter, we don't.
Unless something comes up for the...
Yeah, we're done with the public hearing. Yes.
I mean,
yes.
you can. We might bring something up on the budgets or special town meeting warrant articles. But
Yes. Diane, you want to bring something up?
And this might be the town manager.
if you look at this, FY24, 23 budgets and special town meeting articles, if there's any questions on them, so.
They will send you these emails tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Diane, you have a question?
The, I don't know, budget thing that we were supposed to do in October, we're not doing that at all? It was
Mr.
Bill's.
Rowe's initiative.
What are we doing next week?
He never came up with an agenda. There's nothing we had to cancel.
No. What's the other one for the? Oh, okay, that's not the summit, okay.
So we're not doing that on the 14th?
No. Yes, correct. That,
Anyone on the board know that?
yes, the financial summit is being canceled. The financial summit has been canceled. Everyone, I know, it had been rescheduled, I think, 6 times. So I think it's just canceled now. So you can stop waiting for the financial summit.
But there's the other one next week,
Yes, we're meeting Tuesday,
the 3rd.
the 3rd, here. Wednesday, we have our public hearing for the rest of the articles, and Thursday, we'll be voting that. We have a joint meeting with the Select Board. Yeah, a joint meeting with the Select Board on Tuesday. I think they just really want to give us a presentation on some stuff, so.
7 o'clock?
Yeah, 7 o'clock here, yep.
Joint costs and all that.
Oh, thank you.
And then Wednesday, public hearing here for the remaining articles, I forget the numbers. And then we'll be closing the public hearing then. If we have time that night, we could theoretically start voting, or we'll be voting Thursday. Yes, Chet?
I just want to let you know that October 4th, will not be able to attend the meeting. I'm so sorry. October 4th, I will not be able to attend the meeting. Picking up my son from Texas at the airport, so same time, we're having the meeting, so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that one.
Well, thank you very much. You can come here the 5th if you want. I mean, you pick, okay, so that means Chet will be here then.
All right.
I'd like to thank the committee for staying on target on the questions and comments. I think it's good. We had a lot of stuff to get through, so I want to just kind of say that.
And it's, except for yours.
You're banned from Stoughton Enthusiasts, right? So you said that, so. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. So anything else?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn. That sounded,
I think Eric got
that
this.
sounded like Eric.
Who wants a second on that, Elliot? Okay.
Eric got
Okay,
it.
there we go. Motion and a second on the floor to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Meeting adjourned.
That's 9:42 Apple time.